Hello and welcome. This is Rappler Talk. I am Lian Juan. Is rule of law under threat in President Rodrigo Duterte's Philippines? A group of lawyers say it is. Called the Concerned Lawyers for Civil Liberties, the group fought the policies of then-President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo. Recently, they revived the group to fight the policies of President Rodrigo Duterte, which they say is worse. And there are threats to fundamental rights that, according to them, is unseen of since martial law. And sitting with us today is one of the conveners of CLCL, the President of the National Union of People's Lawyers, Attorney Edre Olalia. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Lian.
Sir, can you remind us and the viewers, ano yung ginawa nyo ng CLCL nung term ni President Arroyo?
Well, I vividly remember it was a memorable and significant day because it was the first time that 800 lawyers of different political persuasions in their court attires, some wearing coat and tie, marched from the Integrated Bar of the Philippines office in Pasig, Julio Vargas, all the way to the EDSA Shrine. And
Ano yung pinoprotesta nyo nun, sir?
at that time, ang spark nun was the Proclamation 1017, which is the emergency rule of the former President Arroyo. It's significant because EDSA Shrine is impenetrable during those times. You cannot step beyond the phalanx of policemen, beyond the plank boxes, if you notice that were placed there. But we were able to break through by sheer persuasion, argumentation, and probably because the police people were really scared that they will face a slew of charges if they violate our rights to assembly.
Sir, why was Proclamation 1017 such a threat to lawyers back then? Ano ba yung, what did it provide for?
Well, definitely it was a threat not only to lawyers but also to the public at large because as the term connotes, it empowers the executive to implement certain measures that are ordinarily not allowed, like warrantless arrests, like raids of press
Media
offices.
offices.
Yes, I remember it was a Tribune, if I remember right. So it's a threat not only to us, but more for the public and the citizens and the media, for that matter.
And what happened that day, sir, when lawyers marched from IBP to EDSA Shrine?
Although it may sound immodest, but we remember that on the very same afternoon, Proclamation 1017 was withdrawn, no? Because perhaps the signal was clear that if the lawyers are marching, then there must be something really coming. But to be very fair, it was an accumulation, of course, of protests, not only from the lawyers,
Yes.
but from different organizations and so-called civil society groups and even media.
Sir, fast forward to 2019, 3 years into the Duterte presidency na tayo. Kaka-relaunch lang ng CLCL last week, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct.
Why did it take you 3 years to relaunch CLCL?
Why? Well, kasi hindi naman pwede maging contrived or artificial. Ano yan evolution din yan because basically lawyers, by the nature of their social standing, their training, conservative, individualistic, very individualistic. Wala naman ano yan as long as hindi sila naapektuhan, they just go to court, fight their cases, and then go home, watch Netflix, probably play a few rounds of golf afterwards, or play with their babies. But when push comes to shove, when there is already a clear pattern that pakunti-kunti, yung nakikita namin na talagang sunod-sunod na yung pattern tsaka yung trend of yung binabakbak yung ating rights, nag-evolve naman, no? Kasi for instance, just to illustrate how difficult it is to organize lawyers. In 2005, that was also during the time of Mrs. Arroyo. That was the time when a number of lawyers also, mostly human rights lawyers, were also being killed. So we formed the Councils for the Defense of Lawyers, CODAL, which was one of the conveners of the CLCL at that time. That was 2005. NUPL, my organization, National Union of People's Lawyers, was formed only in 2007. But that was a product of long years of organizing, of pockets of human rights organizations all over the country. And then Madlaban, if you remember, was only formed in November 2017.
2017, yes, I
So that
remember.
was more than a year after the President Duterte came into power, after so many thousands already have been killed.
Yes.
And then only now, so to speak. So it's not something that happens overnight. It's something that you progress or graduate. Depends on certain conditions. Of course, taking into mind also how busy lawyers are. We have eternal deadlines, so to speak. We have to mind so many things in preparation for our court cases, meetings, and what have you. No? So, matagal yan. Pero basically, conservative. No? Until it really strikes you, ay, kailangan talaga magsalita, no? Beyond the courts.
So sir, do you recall a final trigger that drove you to pick up the phone and say, kailangan na natin talagang i-revive to or at least start talking?
Wala talaga, Lian. Wala talagang final trigger. Talagang ano yan, ang tawag dito, nag-ipon. Kumbaga napuno na yung salok.
But
so
when
to
did
speak.
the first formal talks start?
Well, let me see. It was relaunched September 23 on the actual day when the dictator Marcos Sr.'s martial law was
Martial law.
proclaimed, no? Not September 21. So it was time for that day. No? I think 3 weeks before, if I'm not mistaken, if you refresh my memory, there was this first preliminary investigation hearing before the Justice Department against several individuals.
Is it the Bicoy sedition
the Bicoy,
case?
yes. The Vice President, flag lawyers, the religious. We were there.
So doon pala nagsimula ang unang
Doon namin
pag-uusap nyo. Okay.
in-approach sila Chel, sila
Okay.
Marlon, sila Eric, kami ni
That's
Neri.
why you were there.
That's why we were there
Okay.
as a manifestation of our moral support because they're also being under fire because they supported us when we were under fire during the matrix so-called of Manila Times and during our Amparo cases. So sabi namin, Marlon, Chel, Erin, pati si Pilo Hilbay and some other lawyers during the Cory Aquino time. Rene Sagisag, of course.
Yes.
No? Buuin natin ulit. Walang debate, walang digression or diversion, walang ibang view. Sige, tao kayong So, nag-meet kami sa IBP, no? And it's not something that we should be hiding because it's just something that
And you launched in the IBP. So.
yeah, it was launched in the IBP, and it's very symbolic because the IBP, being the mandatory lawyers organization, is saying that we are here because we are lawyers, not because you are from NUPL or FLAG or Articular Tres or from Vice President Bines Group or Mabini. Just because we are lawyers. We have a duty and a obligation to perform as lawyers.
Sir, could you name a single issue right now that leaps out as a really big threat to the rule of law? Yung present ngayon, yung nasa laman ng balita or anything?
Issue.
Or kaso, kung merong kaso. Do you think really threatens the rule of law in the country?
Ang talagang nakaka-alarm and really should be a cause for serious concern. Yung abuse of power, yung walang check, walang impunity, yung slow, gradual but certain concentration of power into, if not one man, into one branch of government, no?
Which is the executive.
So, executive, no? Especially sa chief executive. Yun ang nakakatakot kasi ang abuse of authority, governmental authority, abuse of power, is the prescription to a authoritarian society, no, governance. So yung bits and pieces na shortcuts here, shortcuts there, reinvention of certain legal principles, and then even twisting certain interpretations of jurisprudence, and then yung pronouncements ng ruler king, no? Parallel to a ruler king, ano sinabi ng hari, hindi mababali. Delikado yan. It will start sa mga critics yan. Umpisahan sa critics yan. Umpisahan sa position. Umpisahan sa mga mangiingay, sa mga vocal, mga ano.
A war on dissenters. A war on dissenters.
Yeah, dissenters, critics. Susunod dyan, media. Susunod dyan, religious. Susunod na dyan, estudyante. Susunod dyan, magsasaka. Ayan, yan ang problema dyan. No? There's this saying naman, all know that. No? You didn't speak because you were not this and you were not that. Until it came to a point that nobody was there anymore to speak out for you because you just you took a blind eye and then you just kept silent in the face of all this injustice and transgressions on your civil liberties. And the next day you wake up, then wala ka na talagang karapatan. It's not even possible to hold this kind of interview. No? Let alone challenge them in courts, no? Because of the concentration of power. Yun ang nakakatakot. Kasi hindi naman kailangan i-declare ang martial rule, no? For us to say that may authoritarian tendencies na if there is not yet, no? Because it's debatable, but for us, the signs are already there, no? And I can elaborate on that if we have enough time.
Let's demonstrate the attacks. Inisa-isa mo kanina, sir. Una, critics. So we saw the jailing of Senator De Lima. We saw the charges being filed against Vice President Leni Robredo, the amnesty being taken away from Senator Trillanes, and then media, and then
And the CJ, Sereno.
Chief Justice Sereno, lawyers, human rights lawyers. 35 na ba, sir? 36 ang lawyers?
At least 42.
At least 42.
And then one was ambushed, you remember? On the
Yes,
very
in
day
Panay.
that, in Panay,
In
copies.
Panay.
On the very day that CLCL was relaunched in the morning, she survived 9 bullet
her car.
shots in her car, no? So again, talagang makikita natin na talagang even Sister Patricia Fax, no?
Yun nga, the religious, sir.
Even the
So the
religious.
bishops are being investigated now for inciting to sedition.
Exactly. And then, of course, the phenomenon of political dissenters or detainees, where it is customary, routinary, that planting of explosives, because it's non-bailable, they just lock you up even if they know that it's false, no? Or filing of bad cases. Some people we call it trump up or false charges. Yeah, you can just call it bad cases. But in the sense that there's no iota of evidence or that wouldn't even pass muster the very minimum standard of probable cause, no? For purposes of filing it in court. So these are the badges of what is already being popularized as weaponization of the law. But the more precise term is politicization, no, of the law and procedure, or even fascisation, no? Trying to use and justify certain authoritarian measures and steps by the facade or the of the tool of the law itself, which is ironic, no? It's ironic. Because the law should serve justice, not the other way around, or you cannot abuse it to justify certain violations of rights. So, yun ang problema. Kaya kami sa NUPL, meron kaming reservation without qualification pag ginamit mo without qualification yung term na rule of law eh. Kasi the reality is, it's the law of the rulers. So, hindi talaga siya rule of law, quote-unquote. Because basically, rule of law is what the economic and political elite say so. Right? So Congress, so executive, and with all due respect, no, because of the decisions, not because of who they are, but because of the decisions, makikita din naman natin na mas may inclination to validate and sanction exercise of governmental authority compared to the assertion and protection of human rights.
Sir, anong kaso or anong issue yung masasabi mong it was such a brazen act na parang natawa ka na lang that they could do this pala?
Siguro offhand, kasi sabi ko nga marami yan, pero offhand talaga ang naging litmus test ay yung kay Chief Justice Sereno, former Chief Justice now. Because this is not the things that we were taught in law school.
Yes.
No? It's not in our law books. Very basic fundamental principles and the modes by which you remove a sitting justice, not even a chief justice. No? So, wala dun eh. Wala dun talaga.
Walang kowaran to.
Walang kowaran to. It's only through impeachment alone, di ba? So, nung na-reinvent yung nakahanap ng justification, talagang na-test na, kumbaga, na-rock the boat, so to speak, yung aming yung traditional understanding of rule of law, constitutional, wala naman dyan. How come it's possible? So if they can do that to somebody as high up there in the political hierarchy as the Chief Justice because she was critical of the so-called drug war
Martial law.
and martial law for that matter, then nobody is really insulated or safe, no? Because you can throw the whole governmental machinery, resources, and time and manpower to really run after or be vindictive nga ang nangyari, no? So talagang pag hindi ka talaga sumunod, pag hindi ka tumahimik, if you don't toe the line, we will get you out of the way. That's the message. So sa amin, ano yun? Nakakarindi. No? Kasi, teka muna ba? Ganun. Diba? Tapos, ang ano pa dyan, the majority of the
I was gonna say, sir, that was not the act of the executive branch alone. It was upheld by the Supreme Court 8-6.
Yeah, but that is legal fiction. No? The reality is that that's not the way things are. No? The executive spoke through the Solicitor General, no? And certain appointees, with all due respect to them, and without casting aspersions on their integrity, there are imponderables or even unwritten subjective factors that came into play that validated that challenge to the position of the Chief Justice. Huwag na natin pag-usapan yung internal, intramurals. That is also something that should not come into play, but it did, no?
Yes.
So I think it is not going to be very honest when you say that we do not have any hand in the removal of the Chief Justice, no? Kasi before it was even filed, he was going to town, no, left and right, against the Chief Justice, saying that I'm going to take you away, no? So, yun nga ang problema, yung signal from there, pag binaba mo yan, talagang talagang, kahit na yun, di ba? Yung so-called surrender, re-arrest, sinabi ko ni Presidente. O, di ba?
Sir, focusing muna on the Supreme Court, anong kaso yung dinecidan nila that you think also contributes to the threats to the rule of law?
To the rule of law.
I remember Boracay.
Boracay, and then under the present administration, na umabot sa Supreme Court, martial law. Definitely. Di ba? 3 times.
3 times.
Di ba? And we were party counsels in those cases. That also tested our belief as lawyers in the justice system, because it's very clear to us what are the only grounds by which you can declare martial law, if at all. And then what is the qualification? There must be a certain condition, di ba? When public safety requires it. And then when you say that there are 3 conditions, then that is reinventing a very basic issue. Dalawa lang, di ba?
But sir, all the 3 decisions gave premium to presidential discretion.
Yeah.
So do you think that reinterpreted the Constitution?
Well, it's the job of the Supreme Court to
To
interpret. Maybe that was a slip of the tongue, but I didn't mean that. To interpret the Constitution. But an interpretation is subject to certain rules also and precedents, no? And then you don't interpret something when it's very clear. It's very clear in the Constitution that there are only 2 grounds, and the qualification is not a ground. And then when you say that the scope and coverage of martial law can be expanded to the places where the actual threat, which is debatable to start with, is not present, then that is giving so much latitude and so much so much trust. Ang trabaho nga ng ibang branches is to check on the other branch. So why are you saying na bahala na kasi siya naman nakakaalam diyan? Paano kaya kung ang motivation nga di ba trabaho mo nga na kahit na may power ka, titingnan pa rin namin. Kasi baka sumusobra yan. Trabaho namin 'to Otherwise, balik tayo sa martial law ni Marcos, no? Na baliwala talaga ang Supreme Court doon. Lone dissenter lang yung dati yun. So, burahin na natin yung tinatawag na separation of powers and checks and balances kung gano'n ang mangyayari. So, yun ang aming point naman. Of course, it's our opinion, no? But as lawyers, then we have to respect whether we like it or not. No? We have to respect because we're officers of the court. No? We're not here to undermine, no? But we're here also to express our dissent, because after all, dissent is
Vital to
is
democracy.
vital to democracy, so to speak. And then you should not be penalized for voicing out your dissent, even in the Supreme Court, may dissent.
Yeah. Sir, all that said, do you think it's time for lawyers to take to the streets just like what you did in the Arroyo administration, just like what we saw in Hong Kong when lawyers in suits marched from their court to the Justice Department? Tingin niyo po ba kailangan ng magpakita ng ganong klaseng solidarity sa kalsada ng mga abogado?
Hindi kami ang magde-decide niyan. Pero on the part of the NUPL, naman kami, wala naman kami tigil sa pagsali sa SONA, sa kung ano nung rally, ang issues, naniniwala kami. Pero kung concern lawyers for civil litigation, because it is a broad, diverse aggregation of lawyers, you know naman kung sino-sino nandyan, kailangan consensus din yan, no? Siguro,
is that something that the CLCL parang nasa agenda nyo talaga na pag-usapan ang posibleng pagprotesta ng mga lawyers?
Nasa ano naman yan, nasa radar naman yan, if and when it's necessary, no? Kasi sabi ko nga sa'yo, it's not usual that you see men and women and men in court attire marching down the streets, no? Even if we are also citizens, no, we're entitled to exercise our own rights of assembly and association. Pero dahil because of the nature of our work, oras namin, tapos may syempre mga interest din mga kanya-kanya lawyer, no? You know that they represent certain clients that might feel uncomfortable, no? Which is true in terms of defending suspected drug users. Ganun yan eh. May mga considerations yan. Pero magkakaroon ng spark yan. Yung nga sinasabi
Malapit
ko,
na, sir.
I don't know when, because it's we don't have a crystal ball, no? But pag napuno na sa loob, parang yung nangyari noong 2006. Hindi naman namin pilado na na mag-marcha tayo eh. Talagang nagkasundo na lang, ay sobra na to. Hindi na enough yung traditional platforms for voicing out one's opinion and dissent. Korte, media, community. So, dahil hindi na enough yun, sisingaw. Maghahanap siya ng exhaust valve. Kahit naman saan bahagi ng mundo, ang right to assembly is a crucial right, di ba? From the freedom of thought, political belief, and then how do you articulate it? Freedom of speech, expression. So how do you further implement it? By associating with others. So how do you concretize it? By moving, by marching, by petition signing, by lobbying, whatever. So ano yan? It's a slew of rights that are options of lawyers. But because nga diverse, broad, and that is both an advantage and disadvantage, then we have to discuss it collectively.
So punta tayo sa pinaka-current hot topic ngayon, the issue of GCTA. I remember you told me na yung IRR of the DOJ is really open to serious legal challenge and meron nang petition sa Korte Suprema. I guess what I want to ask is, the DOJ excluded heinous crime. So for the public, bakit they might ask, why are we so concerned for their constitutional rights? And these are people who did very, very bad things. They committed heinous crimes. So why are we fighting for their constitutional rights?
But to be very precise, it was not the DOJ that excluded heinous crimes. It was
it was their IRR.
Yeah, but it was the law that said that heinous crimes, as far as the first part, which is the preventive
credit for preventive imprisonment
under Section 1 of that law, excludes heinous crimes. The second one, which is the GCTA proper and certain other time allowances, is debatable.
Debatable. And that's what the DOJ IRR do.
Yes,
They made it very clear.
So if the question is why did they exclude, may problem kami dyan as human rights lawyers. No? Kasi the reality is, many, if not most, of our clients, our political prisoners, are charged not with political crimes, but with common crimes, which are classified under a law as heinous.
As heinous.
What are they? Murder, arson, robbery, kidnapping. No? Buti nga, wala pa yun yung illegal possession of explosives. Baka idagdag yan. Paano kung ilagay pati yung rebellion? So doon pa lang may problema na kami. No? But assuming the classification for what it already is, no? Walang incompatibility na isama mo dapat yung charged and convicted of heinous crimes dun sa availability of those time allowances. Ngayon, nagtataka nga kami. Bakit mo tinanggal yung heinous crimes doon sa second part, which is GCTA, na wala naman doon sa law? And ang framework naman ng GCTA is reformative. Rehabilitative, no? Rather than retributive or punitive, no? So, tapos, alam naman lahat ng lawyers yan, kahit naman kayo ng justice bit, alam nyo na basta favorable sa accused, retroactive yan, di ba? Unless the law itself says otherwise. Wala naman eh. Hindi naman sinasabi. So, ang ano namin, ang problem namin dyan, executive legislation yon. Kaya nga, subject to serious legal challenge. At gusto din ni Justice Secretary na nagkaroon na ng case, no? So, ang ano namin dyan is, dapat talaga inayos yung IIR, tapos i-amend yung law on GCTA para mawala yung vagueness, ambiguity. Tapos yung Supreme Court should rule.
And the other problem you pointed out, sir, is when the President ordered the rearrest of the heinous crime convicts without a warrant.
That's very disturbing.
Na pinagtatanggol ni Justice Secretary Guevara as saying, well, they're evading their sentence, so they're fugitives now, so a warrantless arrest can be effected. Ano masasabi mo dun, sir?
Well, of course, we stand by our position that we have to beg to disagree, no? It's not martial law. During the time of the dictator Marcos, there was the so-called PDA. You're too young to remember that, probably, ASO and PCO. For those who were born, or even those who study history, ASO is Arrest, Search, Seizure, and Order. PDA was Presidential Detention Action. PCO was Presidential Commitment Order. Even the Defense Minister or Secretary at that time was empowered to order the arrest of people. No? Wala yan ngayon. Under the present Constitution, partly as a response to that kind of authoritarian rule, is that only a judge can issue a warrant of arrest. Now, if you say that you're evading a service of sentence, it doesn't add up. Why? They did not escape.
They were freed.
They were freed. Rightly or wrongly. If wrongly, that's your lookout. Because you're the state, then that's your responsibility to rectify it. But you should not pass on the burden on these people that you release, and they're not committing any crime, evasion of service of sentence, and then by the mere say-so of your principal, and then you threaten people with a shoot to kill, and good nga, inatrust yun di ba? Pero ano na nabitawan na Tapos, tinatakot nyo. Pag hindi, tutugisin namin kayo, may tracker teams kami. Kaya ano nangyari? Lagpas doon sa listahan ang sumuko. Kahit yung hindi sumuko, sumuko. Tapos, meron kami, sinabi ko sa iyo earlier, na political prisoners, parole na, absolute pardon na, hinuli. More than 20 days na nasa bilibid ngayon. So, talagang yun ang problema natin. When by a mere executive pronouncement, validated by our Justice Secretary, who is a political appointee, and as a matter of fact, it's his job to defend the position of the President because it's the alter ego, then we have a problem. We have a problem. You can be arrested. I can be arrested. Because the President says so. We have a problem.
Yeah, and let's just point to viewers na hindi naman ito yung unang issue ng warrantless arrest. Si Rodel Jaime was arrested without a warrant. The Justice Secretary threatened warrantless arrest against members of CAPA. And then, at Senator Trias, di ba, una ipapa-warrantless arrest pa daw siya, pero nagkaroon ng spectacle sa Makati Regional Trial Court. Sir, which brings me to my next question is, how would you assess Secretary Guevara or the DOJ under Secretary Guevara? Would you ascribe some of these things you say as violation of fundamental rights to the DOJ?
Okay, you're putting me on the spot, okay? But I have to be very candid, no? Compared to his predecessor, no, certainly at least there is the impression that the Justice Secretary is by and large an upright person, right? By and large. But at the end of the day, because he is a political appointee and the Justice Department is under the Chief Executive, then when the chips are down, so to speak, he has to defend whatever is. In fact, kahit yung shoot to kill, siya pa nga yung nagsabi na don't take him literally, di ba? So that's his job, no? But it challenges one's ang problem diyan nako-compromise, no? Yung one's the public's perception of your consistency, no? Nothing personal, really. No, I want to put that on record. Whoever is sitting there or in any department, or you and me, no, for your credibility to be intact, there must be integrity. No, if there is integrity, you should be consistent. No, because if you're consistent, you become credible. If you're credible, then your reputation precedes you. It's not a jumble. You first establish your integrity, and then you demonstrate your consistency because you say the same thing, whatever the circumstances, whoever is involved, no, and whoever is your principal, and then that shows that you have credibility because hindi ka papalit-palit ng position.
Have you seen such consistency with the DOJ or the Justice Secretary?
Compared to the predecessor, again, no, talagang iba naman talaga yung predecessor. Ngayon, meron na rin mga indicators. No? I don't want to be conclusory, no? But it's an opinion because you asked me. Doon sa martial law, nagka-problema kami doon sa interpretation. Yun yung sinabi na natin. Pangalawa, itong doon sa arrest without warrant. No? May problema kami doon. Kasi under the rules of criminal procedure, there are only 3 instances. The third, which is the closest, is when escapee, no? Pugante. It never came close to that. Pinag-usapan na natin. Although, meron jurisprudence na yun nga, pinag-question din namin yan, pinag-aralan naman namin. It's not applicable. It's not on all fours. So, maiisip mo talaga na talaga dapat a department, just like in other countries, para maging insulated sa political winds, no, ay dapat ay hindi under the political leadership, no. So, sino yung presidente diyan? 'Di ba sa ibang bansa may special counsel, kahit sino 'yan. Basta kami pag inutusan kami na gagawin namin trabaho namin kahit, 'di ba? Sana ganon, but that's not the way things are. So, that's the prospectively. So, going back, I was trying to evade your question if you noticed, no. But going back, by and large, no. Of course, there are disappointments. But I think that the Justice Department, as an institution, of course, wala namang plano yan eh. Pero may problem kami, halimbawa sa John Does, no? Ano na yan? Talamak yan, yung abuse ng John Does. We outlined 6 ways by which you can use John Does to arrest people, no? If we have time, we can elaborate that. But the latest, alam mo, Lian, is that they issue subpoenas, on a complaint by a police or the military of an individual using allegedly a nom de guerre of an actual person. And that actual person is a publicly known activist. So,
Anong kaso to, sir?
Sa Negros.
Okay.
Hinuli nila, 8. Tama si Mr. Juan de la Cruz, Aka, Edre Olalia, kunyari lang, just to purpose. Kahit pa paano naman, alam naman kung ano itsura ko, kung sino ako, bakit ginagamit nila yon? Ngayon, i-transport mo yan, no? Yung ganyang kalakaran. Lalagyan pa nila ng John Does, i-replace na lang nila yan, mag-a-affidavit lang, no? Mag-aayusin yan. Mali yung pangalan, i-replace yan. Kailangan dyan, may description personae ang tawag, no? Na bakit? John Doe, Jane Doe, o whatever Doe, hindi magkakamali manguhuli. Pero kung walang ganun, kahit sino pwede sabihin, ikaw si John, ikaw si Jane, ikaw si kaya huliin ka namin, bahala ka na mabulok dyan. May problem kami doon. May problem din kami doon sa tinatawag na presumption of regularity. Yan talaga yung refuge ng bahala na kayo, matter of defense. Halimbawa, ito sige, very straightforward. Nabasa naman namin yung halimbawa sa Robredo, obviously,
Sedition.
Sa sedition. Obviously, at the very first instance, pwede mo nang
I-dismiss.
I-dismiss. Sige, closer to home. Kaso nila Nery Colmenares, no? Yung trafficking of
The minors.
the so-called minors because they're not.
They're 18. She's 18.
She's 18. Although sabi nila at that time she was 17. Okay, but that's not the issue. The issue is Nery Colmenares, our chair in NUPL, was implicated, no, by the mere
Just
say
because
so.
the student campaigned daw
No, because the student was organized for the purpose of campaigning. So by any stretch of the imagination, that cannot be child abuse, child trafficking, or sedition. Chinek namin yung evidence. Yun lang.
Yun lang.
Wala man lang sa. So why don't you at the first instance
Dismiss the case
dismiss
against
the case,
Nery Colmenares.
Yun ang problem. Reform siya di ba? Na kailangan. Ngayon, in terms of the department being used as a political instrument, we have disagreements with that as a matter of principle.
But you have hopes na the DOJ will stand up for what is right for the cases that is pending before it.
It's not a question of hope. It's a question that it's our job to tell them that you should be doing your jobs. No, we will be calling them out. No, because as lawyers, at one time we are at opposite camps. No, prosecution, defense. At another time, makakampi kami. Public prosecutor, private prosecutor.
In
Halimbawa,
Mary Jane
Veloso, di ba? Ang Solgen, kakampi namin sa Mary Jane. Sila nagsampa nung sa Korte Suprema. So, we're professionals, no? So, bagamat some lawyers would ambulance case, some lawyers would defend, ang tawag dito, consistently scumbags, no? It's a legitimate term. You can look it up, no? Even if we say that you should not ascribe the cause of the client to the lawyer, but it keeps you thinking, why does this lawyer, no? Keep on defending for money, no, for a fee, these kinds of people. Then you try to present a legal fiction and justification. Ay, kung naman yan pero meron kang iisipin, ginagawa mong yan, ginagawa mong hanap buhay, no. But anyway, at the end of the day, we're all professionals. Okay.
Which brings me to my last question, sir. You said this before, the Duterte administration is reinventing the law. How do you stop it? How do you stop him from further reinventing the law?
You want to read my mind?
Hirap.
No. Seriously now. Beside levity, syempre wala tayong magic wand, no? But in general, I think you just have to keep on pushing back. No? Generally, you have to even swim against the tide, so to speak. And then you utilize consistently, credibly, and then persistently all kinds of platforms and venues, media, courts, Congress, the streets, schools, communities, factories, international arena, to deliver the message that no matter how powerful any government is, with all your resources, with all your machinery, and all your armed forces, people who believe that there is a line that you should not cross because we gave you power to govern us for our rights and welfare, not to violate it. There are people that are not going to just sit back and look away, and they will say that we will not accept this taking down. And you're going to face resistance, you're going to face opposition, you're going to face struggle. Over time, maybe not tomorrow, maybe not next month, maybe not even when President Duterte steps down, whenever he steps down for whatever reason, but cumulatively, it's worth fighting for. The investment of your time, your passion, your belief, and your commitment, that wherever you are, media, lawyers, teacher, pare, pastor, ano ba man, sasabihin mo, teka muna, hindi pa pwede yan. At hindi kami papayag. At lalaban kami. At great cost. Kasi sa susunod naman, yun naman ang makikinabang, hindi naman kailangan kami.
Okay. A lot to think about. Thank you, sir. That was Attorney Edre Olalia, the President of the National Union of People's Lawyers, one of the conveners of Concerned Lawyers for Civil Liberties. This is Lian Buan. Thank you for watching Rappler Talk.